Everyone, to another episode of Living Life with James. Today, I am excited because I have a fellow therapist who I know so well, and I've had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know, Heidi Clapham here. Heidi Clapham she's a licensed professional counselor. She has a practice here in Arizona. She specializes in cognitive behavioral therapy. She runs the gamut from individual, couples, group work. She specializes in addictions, gambling, and anxiety. So I thought, who better to have here to help us kind of get some insight into this world, get her professional experiences, and help us navigate through this a little bit. So with all of that said, Heidi, welcome.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here, James.
I'm happy to have you. I love talking with you. You always have so many great tips and tools, and you're fun to talk with. And I love that viewers get to see and hear your experiences.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited. This is a near and dear topic to my heart. I love talking about it. And I think it's something that most people kind of don't talk about. It's kind of a hush hush addiction, gambling. And it's a huge problem, especially with sports betting right now. So I'm excited to be here just to get the word out.
I'm glad you said that because, when we think about gambling, it's like, sometimes you go to the idea of what classic gambling could be. And you just saying that kind of takes us out of the box already. It can look so different.
Yes. And I think it's changed. I mean, when I first started about 20 some years ago, it was 55 and older women who were either single or divorced or a spouse died, and they'd be in the casinos. It was kind of an outlet, a place for them to feel, welcome, but kind of in a social setting, and got them out of the house. And now most of my gamblers are 45 and younger, sports bettors. I mean, it's a big problem since September 2021, and I've had to shift how I do things, and it's been amazing and scary because it's a major problem, and I think college students is the biggest problem
Wow.
right now.
Who knew, Heidi? So,
Mhm.
so that's what I want to talk about today. I have you here. I want to have the viewers, I want to have some insight as to how to be able to recognize certain things when it comes to these topics. How can we leave this episode with maybe some tips and tools with not just recognizing if there's an issue or red flags that are coming up, but what are the next steps? And people being able to understand, maybe break the idea or the stigma of what gambling and addictions is about, and just be able to not only have some more knowledge from listening to this, but also tools and tips for whether it's yourself or a friend, family member that could benefit from this.
Absolutely, I'm ready. Bring it
Thank
on.
you. Bring it on. So, tell me a little bit about your work. And I say that because I've worked with many people that, suffer or deal or struggle with addictions, specifically gambling addictions. And I know that there's a level of anxiety that comes with this. So if you can maybe speak a little bit about the work that you do and how these things gambling, addictions, anxiety, mood, how they all affect one another.
I mean, I think that's a great point. I think that a lot of times people come in, specifically people that have never felt anxiety before, are suddenly like, "Oh my gosh, I have really bad anxiety," and
Mm.
they're not getting to the link, and they're like, "Oh, my gambling's causing this problem." And so, yes, there is generalized anxiety. Lots of people have it, but when you have an addiction, you start to create anxiety-driven components to your being, and all of a sudden you're like dealing with something you've never dealt with before. So the natural idea is, I got to go get this anxiety fixed, but the reality is you need to fix the addiction. And when you're dealing with, specifically right now, colleges, they don't want to talk about this. They don't have the tools, they don't have the questions. And so when someone comes in for anxiety, they have this amazing opportunity to attack the problem, and it's getting missed.
So is this something that they're recognizing? I'm just hearing an overlap. How do you distinguish the two?
Yeah, it's very difficult. And that's why it's important to have questionnaires and, like understanding, like, do you gamble? Do you have a problem with gambling? Do you have people in your family that gamble? Has gambling ever caused any financial problems in your life? When did your anxiety start? Like, these are questions that some colleges, specifically more on the East Coast, are starting to address this. But I've
Mm.
already went and spoke at a college here, and they don't even use an assessment for gambling. They don't even talk about it.
Heidi, break it down for me because, I have to admit, one of the things I think of, as you said, is a certain demographic or a certain method or mode of gambling. And I'm already hearing you say college. So tell me a little bit more about kind of where you're seeing this and what the demographic can look like and what kind of gambling.
Okay, so the demographic is now 18 to 25-year-old males is the
Wow.
primary. Women who have never notoriously been known as sports bettors are becoming sports bettors because one of the number one issues for young people with sports gambling is FOMO. So if everyone's out at a
Mm.
bar doing whatever, they're like, "Hey, how did you make 50 bucks? I want to do it." So they're jumping in on things some know things about and some don't know. So here we are, we're dealing with this. And then we have maybe the middle-aged population, my age and a little bit younger, who is like sports betting. They maybe have done it illegally for many years. They've had a bookie and now it's in their pocket and they're making bets till 2, 3 in the morning and their spouse has no idea that they're betting, losing thousands of dollars. So this is a huge problem. The phone is causing people to gamble like with sports, with what am I?
Games?
Slot machines.
Yeah.
Everything like from blackjack to poker, like everything. So you don't even have to necessarily walk into a casino. So it's very difficult for people to know. I mean, you can grab your phone and be like this, and you're just thinking they're texting, but they might be making $1,000 bet.
Yeah, well, not only that, but you just made me think. I know people that are on their phones, not just doing gaming, but they're doing almost like these casino slot machine games. It's easily accessible at your fingertips, so I can see
Yeah,
how
yeah.
it could pull you into this world, even if you don't or haven't thought of yourself as a gambler.
Correct. So little games that people play all the time on their phones can then transfer into let's try maybe a game that makes money versus coins. So we have all these things. We start children
Mm.
out on games where they get skins on roadblocks
Oh,
or these are no one thinks about it, but these are
nobody
all
thinks
forms
about
of
these.
these are all forms of young gambling. They just don't make any money off of it, but it can graduate into.
Yeah, yeah, and as you're saying that, it's almost like we're starting them off young and not even realizing it's almost like conditioning them in some type of way.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, Heidi, this is fascinating. What would you say? What are some signs? What are some signs to look out for people that are listening? They're like, oh my gosh, I do some of these things or some of these behaviors. What are some signs or signals to look for?
One big one that maybe we wouldn't see looking at somebody, but if somebody is struggling, is that there's severe financial problems starting to happen, or financial problems just in general are starting to happen. The other thing is that maybe you're asking your parents more for money or borrowing money, and like, why are you always borrowing so much money? This is something. The other thing that I see a lot is irritability, anxiety, depression are all key factors. And I think that we have to recognize that because we tend to see people like, oh, you're depressed, but we never dig like what's causing this depression or how come you're feeling depressed lately? You haven't ever been like that before. It really pushes and encourages people, for me, I think, go ahead and ask the hard questions. You're going to hate yourself if you don't.
Right, because you're saying that the underlying issues, we would wind up just maybe thinking or tackling the idea of a mood disorder or anxiety, and you're saying it goes deeper. There's something else bigger happening there.
Yeah. Now, and like anything else, James, as you know, not every person who's depressed, not every person who's anxious has a problem. But here's the thing, ask the question. Let's eliminate it. Do you ever gamble? Do you ever bet? Do you ever play dice? Do you ever, you know, bet on sports? I mean, let's get to it. And if they say, oh, no, I don't do any of that, okay, then maybe we can eliminate that right now. But if you don't ask the question, you won't know.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that. I want to even take it further, not just gambling, casinos, dice, but also games on our phone, maybe in some way.
Hmm. Absolutely. 100%.
I'm glad you're bringing this up, not just for viewers to listen, but also, not just for people that may think they have an issue, but this is really important for other practitioners to know and to look for it,
Hmm.
and as they're working with
Absolutely.
clients.
And I will tell you, I just want to say this because this is so important to me, is that Arizona and many other states, but Arizona, we offer a state funded program to help gamblers and their family members. And you can come get individual therapy, couples counseling, you can get family therapy. It's at a very reasonable cost of a copay. and the help is at your fingertips. The state really helps to try to give care to those that are struggling from this gambling addiction. So we have self exclusions in the state of Arizona where you can exclude yourself from all sports betting, from all casinos. So
Wow.
there's lots of tools out there. There's also Gamban, which blocks your computer and your phone from gambling online. Also, there's a TrueLink card, which this card, you can kind of block yourself, not kind of, you can block yourself from any casinos or sports betting. So there's things that will help people.
Yeah, well, Heidi, listen, you are a wealth of knowledge, and I feel like when people are going through this, they definitely need support. So being able to reach out to someone like yourself, or to be able to have these resources, which we'll have to put up on, these links so people know for themselves, again, or family or friends.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing them. I'm wondering, somebody thinks they have an issue. They're picking up on some signs. They're concerned. I guess what would be some tools or tips that you could offer? What are some ways to kind of help someone navigate through this?
I think first and foremost is to talk to people. It's a very hidden addiction. It's very quiet. No one really knows about it. So I
Mhm.
would say number one is talk to somebody. Number two, there's two major numbers you can call. If you're in Arizona, it's 1-800-NEXT-STEP. If you're anywhere else, you can call 1-800-GAMBLER. These will help get you in conversations with a professional therapist that can talk to you, that works specifically with gambling addiction and the loved ones or the person affected or the gambler themselves. And then the other thing is to see what kind of help you can go. There's GA, Gamblers Anonymous. There's also Gaminon, which is for the friends and family that are affected by the gambler. There's a lot of different things that help you. Podcasts. I also have a podcast on this every week. So
Yes.
there's lots of stuff out there. Reddit has a lot of help. I mean, it's endless, but you
There's
got to
so
find
many
the right help.
resources. I want to bring it back. Somebody comes into your office. I'm just curious. I'm sure people are curious as to like what is said and what's done. You have somebody
Yeah.
coming in your doors and they say, Heidi, I have some concerns, or I know somebody that has concerns with gambling, also under the umbrella of maybe addictions, and I'm dealing with some anxiety. I guess what would be some of the steps you would say? We have tons of resources available, but what are some of the steps, or some small steps you would take to help deal with kind of the umbrella of maybe an addiction or anxiety?
Well, I think I don't ever attack the anxiety at first because I know what's bringing it on. So
Mm,
I attack okay, what's the problem? Where are you at with wanting to quit? Do you want to quit? Are you wanting to see if you can minimize your gambling, and that's okay? Like, many people are at different places. Yes, I would like to say you need to cut cold turkey. Let's get this started, but that doesn't happen like that. So I have to meet my client where they are. With the knowledge that I have, is most of the time gamblers are about control. So they might do most of the things you want them to do, but they're like, but I'm not going to give up my money, or I'm not going to give up whatever. Okay, well, let's do it your way. And I know in my head, most likely it won't work. And then we'll get started. So for me, it's let's see what works, what doesn't work. We don't do too much too fast, because a lot of parents, especially with the college kids, want to throw them into inpatient treatment. That's last resort. Let's start with counseling. Let's start with
yeah.
IOPs. Let's start with GA meetings. Let's start with a bunch of different things before we jump into inpatient, because that's last resort. Where do
Yeah.
you go after that? So I think for me is like, how can we manage your money? What kind of goals can we set this week that are going to set you up for success? How do we involve your friends or family so you're talking about this and they know not to say, hey, do you want to go gamble this weekend? Like, they know, like, "Oh, we don't talk about that now."
Yeah,
So
it sounds like you're creating almost like an individualized treatment plan, right? And breaking it
yeah,
down into small steps of what you can do with them.
hands down. And everyone's different. But at the end of the day, what works for one person may not work for another. But the big goal is to quit gambling and to find true recovery. Just quitting gambling isn't recovery. A lot of times people are just white knuckling it at that point, but like really doing some work around it, getting some individual counseling, going to Gamblers Anonymous, working a 12-step program. There's other programs too if you don't want to do that. But at the end of the day, there's help out there. And I think that it's important for people to know that almost every state has help. you just got to find it.
Absolutely. As you're saying that, and again, there's so much information here that's so helpful. I guess if we were to leave viewers with an idea of how to maybe try to manage, right, some of the only word that comes to my mind is almost like a craving or a desire to gamble, and you're going through this process, and they've reached out to you. Do you have tips or ways to kind of help them start managing some of this?
That's really a tough question. I mean, I think that there's tips. I mean, honestly, it's a tough addiction. It's psychological. It's
Yeah.
not induced by a chemical or a drug or alcohol. It is legit like in your brain, and you are addicted to this process. And so
Yeah.
when somebody comes in, it's tough, but it's doable. But you have to be able to put all the things in place. And that's you have to make sure your money is okay. You have to make sure you talk about money and
You're so,
relearn the
yes.
value of money.
Well, yeah, just as you said that, Heidi, it's going off. You're saying in my brain, I'm hearing you need actionable tools,
Yes.
right? I'm hearing you say you need to have these things to kind of help offer some structure to get them through
Yeah.
these moments.
Yes. Yes. So every person is different because if I'm dealing with a casino gambler, we can ban them from the casino. They can't step foot in it.
Oh,
And then you can ban yourself from DraftKings and FanDuel and Caesars and MGM. And then you can do a ban from the state of Arizona for all online betting that you can do for 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years. But these are big things and people are like, whoa, that's scary because
yeah,
that
that is
gambling.
scary. Well, and that leads me to thinking, what can friends and family do to support someone going through this?
Ask the tough questions. Make sure that their money is handled. Have conversations about it. Don't ignore it. I hear this all the time. I don't ask the questions because I don't want to trigger them. I'm like, that's not going to trigger them to go. Ask the
Yeah.
questions because and listen to this. Many, many, many people will say, have you gambled today or have you wanted to gamble? And they'll be like, no, I haven't gambled today. And I always say, well, ask the next question. They're like, what's that? And I'm like, have you gambled since you relapsed last time? Oh, that's a different answer.
Thank you for giving. I mean, these are some great concrete examples, some questions to ask that not many people think of. You're going to, the classic communication is the key. And I can really see that as being so important as they go through this process.
Mhm. Yeah. So this is good stuff. I love it. I talk about it all the time. There's so much, I shouldn't say so much. There's a lot of help out there, but compared to other addictions, it's minimal.
Mm,
But the stuff that we have in the state of Arizona, at least, and many other states have state funded programs, it is amazing. Take advantage of it. It's a great resource, but it also gets you therapy that you need in order to really be successful.
as you're breaking it down, as you're talking about the resources, I guess what would be maybe one step or one action that someone can take to begin this process for themselves?
Admit that you have a problem.
Oh, admit that there's a concern or a problem related to being in a casino, related to being on your phone, sports betting. Again, it sounds like it looks so different,
It is. It's
but
very different.
taking that first step, admitting that there's a problem, and then seeking the support, the guidance.
Absolutely. Far too many times by the time that the gambler tells somebody that they have a problem, they have either gotten themselves so much into debt. It's usually because they have to tell them, I spent my last paycheck, I have no way to pay rent, or I've
Oh,
stolen something, or I don't know how that I'm going to, pay for childcare or whatever the case may be. It's gotten so bad that they need somebody to bail them out. And I'm glad we just got to here because do not bail that gambler out. It's a number one no no. A
interesting.
lot of yeah, a lot of times family members will give the person money to go take care of their debt and they will go gamble it to try to earn every ounce of money back and they'll lose that money too.
So, very similar to when you have somebody that's working through addictions, right? Being cautious not to help enable their
Hmm.
behaviors.
Hmm. Yeah. And sometimes you might have to almost enable it. Like they may actually need help. But then here's the deal. I will pay that credit card for you. I will pay it myself. I'm not giving you the money. And then we're going to set up a payment plan for you to pay me back. And if you don't put those things in places, family members tend to be the last person paid back, if at all.
So you would say your words of advice in that situation would be,
once they admit they have a problem, come up with a plan. If a bailout is needed in any way, shape, or form, you have to create a repayment plan before you even consider giving them that money. And you're not giving them the money. You're going to go ahead and pay whoever, and then you will make sure that they have a plan in order to pay you back. And also, because you're helping them, you can make requests like, you need to be in therapy if I do this.
oh
You need
wow.
to go to Gamblers Anonymous if I do this. You need to have a sponsor if I do this. And if you choose and to turn over your money. And if you're saying no to all those things, then I'm not doing this for you.
You know, I'm hearing that the takeaway points for me is really the most powerful piece is sitting and admitting to yourself and possibly others that there is a concern, that there's an issue, that there's a problem. After that, finding that support and doing so, being aware of certain questions that you've already beautifully laid out. You know, the questions you can ask, as you said, the tough questions to be able to say to them. And then also coming up with kind of boundaries related to whether it's paying off a debt or how you can support versus enable them. There's so many pieces to this.
Absolutely. And I think I want to reiterate that key phrase is, you do not have to help them. And if they don't want to go by the rules you put in place, then don't do it. If they're willing to say, whatever you need me to do, I'm going to do, have it all set up, have their money coming into your account, you will give them money, or you will let them use the True Link card, which will not allow them to gamble, whatever that may be. And once that's in place, I will go ahead and pay this. And here's what I expect for the repayment.
Gosh, I mean, to be a fly on the wall of your office, this stuff sounds, I mean, it sounds amazing. It sounds emotion filled. It sounds powerful. It sounds scary. I mean, there's so many working parts to dealing with gambling and addiction.
Yep. And I love every ounce of it. And I see so many gamblers get better. I see their lives completely change. But, you know, again, back to what I started just to circle around, the college students are having the worst time because many people gamble in every facet, whether it's at sports bars, college campuses, dorm rooms,
Wow.
games. You know, there's a lot of terms I don't want to really throw out today because there's so many, but there's in-game betting, which means if you've already lost your bet, you can now bet within the game, like who's going to score the next field goal. So
Yeah.
it's everywhere. And if you
Yeah.
don't get some things in place, you'll really screw up financially your life.
You know, as you're saying this, I guess what would you say to those college students that are interested or that maybe have already begun or have this idea of, I'm going to do some sports betting or I'm going to do these things on my phone, it's not that bad. What kind of wisdom or advice from seeing people go down these paths would you put out?
As a mom, I'd say don't do it. But in all reality and logic, I would tell them that if you're going to bet, you have to have an amount that you can spend each week and you have to stick to it. And if you can do that, great. If you can't, then I would jump out as quickly as possible.
Limits. And if you're starting to cross those limits, if you're breaking your own boundaries, get support, get somebody next to by your side that can help you get through this issue.
Yes.
Heidi, this is amazing. I mean, it sounds like we can spend hours talking about this, and it sounds like, we're just skimming the surface and it goes much deeper.
We are skimming the surface, and we could always do a follow-up because I'll tell you what, there is so much information, and this is a real difficult addiction that affects not only the gambler, but the people of support, the people that love them, and it causes a lot of conflict with friends and family, and for the gambler themselves, from depression to anxiety to even at times suicide.
Yeah, I can see a lot of moving parts to this. I can also see how in your profession, cognitive behavioral therapy, how our thoughts affect our actions. I can see how that could play a role in being able to support somebody through this.
Absolutely.
You
But
are the woman for the job.
thank you.
I
I love it. I'll
appreciate
tell you
your
that much.
knowledge. I appreciate your insight. I'm going to be talking to you a lot more. But I love how we broke it down and being able to provide some tools, tips, and resources. If someone notices that they're going through this, how to be able to get some, support and help through this process.
Mhm. I'm here for it. Anyone can look me up here in Arizona under Heidi Clapham. You can find me. I can help you. I can guide you. I can direct you. So,
Heidi, as always, it's been amazing talking to you. Thank you so much. And thanks for the resources. And if anyone needs support, again, Heidi is located in Tempe, Arizona. Excuse me. If anyone needs support, Heidi is located in Tempe, Arizona, and is full of resources and amazing skills, tips, and tools to help somebody get through this.
absolutely. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you, Heidi.